What is up, fighting and slap fans? I am Jason Burgos, and for this edition of Back Talk, I have the pleasure of speaking with a true influencer in this fast-growing sport that is slap fighting. For several years, his SlapFIGHT Championship promotion has been the preeminent hub for the sport in the U.S., and is here to talk all about it, and that is the organization's CEO and big boss. He is JT Tilley. Mr. Tilley, thanks so much for the time.
Hey, I'm so glad to talk to you, Jason. Been watching you a long time.
Likewise. I mean, we were talking about, you actually remember me from MMA Sucker. No one remembers me from that.
I do. I remember you from MMA Sucker. I remember you from Empire State Sports, too, man.
What? Oh, I gotta tell my friend Jose. His mind's getting blown.
I'm the one guy, man.
Thank you. At least someone was listening. It was all worth it. Thank God.
Oh, man. That's so funny, man. Yeah, big fan, man. Glad to talk to you.
I appreciate it. Now, I have so much to talk to you about. This is a fascinating, rising sport. So first, before we get all to the promotion, everything itself, talk to me about how you get to this point where you are running a notable U.S. slap fighting promotion. In the lead up to this conversation, you had mentioned to me being in promotion game for like 20 years, having worked with MMA promotions like LFA. You're an MMA coach still currently right now. How did you get into the promotion game in general? Then during that long run of doing it, how did you discover slap fighting and then feel it was something you wants to put time and effort into promoting on its own?
Oh, man. To be completely honest with you, I started my MMA promotion, my first one, about 16 years ago.
Wow.
And, I didn't expect to do much more than a little hometown promotion, but we did real well. We ended up doing 100 shows, I believe, just right at 100 shows over a 15-year period. And then the states that we do promotions in started to change the way that they sanction events. And I don't know if you know, I live in a little town, Branson, Missouri. It's a little tourist town.
Okay.
And it's a town of 10,000 people. So to be able to run an MMA promotion here was unheard of.
Yeah,
but something happened with the way they regulate fights, and it got just a little bit too expensive to do fights here. And so my team and I just started looking for the next thing. And, I've been absolutely crazy about slap fighting since I first saw it back in 2011. It was the Ink Masters Championships. I don't know if you've ever seen those guys. They had a tattoo convention down in Texas, and they decided to have a slap competition.
Really? I love the show. I watch the show on Paramount all the time. I didn't know they had slap fighting along with that. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Actually, they were first. I just read an article from Vasily Kamatsky where he said he'd never even heard of slap fighting until he saw that clip. So it's interesting how innovative they were. They don't do slap contests anymore, but pretty close with both of their champions from 2011. And I don't know if they realize what pioneers they've been now that we've started to see sort of a resurgence. Yeah. But I started to do slap fight competitions just here in the city of Branson. And we started out in bars, and just to be honest, it's not easy. When you're promoting MMA, you can just call the local gym and say, hey, who do you have that wants to fight?
Yep.
There's a network of gyms all across the Midwest. I've always called, and if I needed somebody to compete at a certain weight class, you can generally just hustle and find it. But where do you find slap fighters?
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult. And so first we didn't even know if it was possible. So we did a couple of 2-3 shows in a local club here in the area. And I got to tell you, a live show, there's nothing like it. I've done 100 MMA shows in my career, and never one of them ever would compare to the excitement of the slap competition. It's unbelievable in person. If you ever get a chance to see one in person, it's unbelievable. And, we fell in love with it, decided, building promotions is what we do. We've built 2 promotions successfully over the last few years. And then, of course, we've worked with LFA. I've co-promoted with LFA a lot, match made some for them. And we decided, well, heck, if we know how to build promotions, let's give it a shot. And here we are 12 shows later, and 150 million views later, and we've got ourselves a bona fide league here.
When watching the promotion, like the videos and stuff like that on the YouTube channel, which has like 60,000 subscribers or like that, which is fantastic. It has like a grassroots and gritty vibe to it, sort of like for me, like ECW was for pro wrestling in the 90s, and I mean that in a very good way. It's not a bunch of flash and fluff just coming at you with a whole bunch of just straight action. It's going to give you your bang for the buck and your view here. But to get to this point where you are getting tens of thousands, hundreds of 100,000, up to millions in totals of views on YouTube. Was this like a passion project where you lost money more than you gained in those first year plus? Has the brand gotten to a place where it is like a legit kind of money making venture that can be maybe your full focus of your business life now?
That's a lot of important questions. I'll just answer them honestly, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna put my finger in my ear so that I look just a little bit more legitimate. Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah, Jason. To be completely honest, it hasn't been a moneymaker for quite some time. When can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I got
okay. When the pandemic hit, it was difficult. Selling tickets wasn't an option anymore. So we have. In the last year and a half, I think we've done 6 shows without selling a single ticket. Wow. And the reason, we're committed to building the sport. Here's the thing about the sport of slap fighting. When you say the phrase, the sport of slap fighting, to most people, they're going to kind of roll their eyes at you. I realize it's a radical movement, but I was there when MMA was a radical movement.
Exactly.
I remember when it was called no holds barred before anyone even came up with the term MMA.
And I remember cockfighting like McCain did. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And I remember when they made it to where we had to go and run to the Indian reservations to continue doing shows.
Yep.
Yeah, so I remember those days, and I'm not really afraid to put a little money out there and a little elbow grease. 12 shows later, we are now a profitable company because something wonderful happened, and the universe blessed us with the YouTube algorithm. And so over the last, I would say, year and a half, we've just been, instead of selling tickets, we've just been giving away our content for free, just in hopes to keep the momentum going. We started, we did 3 or 4 shows, and then we did a small pay-per-view, and the response was incredible. So to stop doing shows just because of the pandemic, it would have been heartbreaking. So we stuck it out. We did a bunch of shows, and the next thing you know, we put the content on our YouTube, and we've got, people are interested, millions and millions of views. And so we've got a group of people here. We have 25 on our roster total. And I got to tell you, it was painstaking to put them together. It was difficult to find them. Well, we've got 4 weight classes now. We've got 4 reigning champions right now. And it's been such a blessing for us because, for a lot of us, it was something to do during the pandemic to keep our sanity. And now I believe July 17th is going to be our next live event. We're so glad to be able to go back and have a live event. You won't believe what it adds to the production just to have streaming fans.
Now, since you mentioned identifying talent, since you mentioned the weight classes, I was going to ask about those specifically in a little bit, but you know what? I'll jump to them now. Now, in some of the SFC videos I have seen, like fights go, 7 rounds and even unlimited rounds at times. Why so many rounds in SlapFIGHT Championship instead of something like 3 rounds? It seems like as the promotion grows, that might be counterproductive in the long term and maybe negatively affect athletes' longevity, durability, to be able to do more events. Let's say it booms, you want to do a bunch more events. Is there a fear that you could burn out the talent too fast or have a greater chance of concussions? Everybody's always scared about concussions, CTE, and very violent sports like this, or are you pretty set with the amount of events you do a year and they're spaced enough apart where the athletes get enough time to rest their brains?
Well, it's a simple answer. We regulate this just like any other combat sport. Anybody that enters a competition, whether they win or lose, they're suspended for 7 days, just like a kickboxer, Muay Thai fighter, jiu-jitsu practitioner, fighter of any type. If they take a bad beat, or if they get knocked out completely, they'll get the concussion protocol is a 60-day suspension.
Awesome.
If it's just, if they're just in a difficult fight where they take a few, they give a few. I've seen 30-day suspensions. But, I come from MMA, Jason, and you do too. And how many times have you seen a guy, down on the mat with his head against the mat, just taking hammer fists, 15, 20, 30, 40 at a time?
Yep.
People ask me a lot about whether or not this is a safe sport. Well, we don't always go 15 rounds. We don't always go 20 rounds. Sometimes we'll stop early if we think somebody's not well. But you have to remember that a lot of these guys, I have a very close personal understanding of their ability to take punishment because many of them have already competed in mixed martial arts, and I've seen what they have to offer. So I can proudly say that after having 12 events, we've only had 1 and maybe 2 times when we had a person that was contused. We haven't lost any teeth. We have only had 1 cut. It's actually a relatively safe sport if you regulate it properly.
And that's awesome to hear, and because as like I said, coming from MMA, you're always worried about brain injury, and that's still an unknown
Yeah,
thing and stuff like that. So it's great to hear that because, like, talking to the CEO of SlapStrike, they had the protocols, but they didn't seem as clear cut as what you're telling me, and that's the beauty of experience. You've been doing this for long
yes,
enough that you
sir.
have all the infrastructure. Now, I like going back to the weight class thing. I love that you have
Sure.
weight classes, which seems like something that isn't very common in other slap striking leagues around the world. Talk to me about why you instituted divisions. What made you say, okay, we need to do divisions? Because it seems like a lot of these leagues are just super heavyweights and monsters. Why did you choose the specific divisions that you have? What pushed you to finally do a women's division that I know you have coming very soon? And is
Sure.
the sport of slap fighting similar to boxing and MMA, where the best contests come from the lighter class people?
Interesting. Maybe we haven't. You see, the thing about slap fighting is that it's such a new sport that you really those questions are. We need time to compete, and we need some history behind the sport before we really know where the most competition is. But I can tell you that the reason for weight classes is because I watch these big Eastern European giants. Like, for example, I'm a big Punchdown fan. Currently in the world, there are two slap competition promotions right now. One is us, and the other is Punchdown. There hasn't been anyone else do an actual event yet. So between us and Punchdown, I love them. I've watched their first. Well, I watched their third event as well, but I've watched every one of their events. I really like their competition. Some of the stuff, I think, as they get a little bit more, maybe as they progress a little more, they might change. I know the last show I saw, they let a guy switch from his right hand to his left hand in the middle of the fight. That's just simply not fair. You're in a competition with others.
Why is that? Explain that for me, because I'm still a newbie, and there's going to be people watching this and listening to this that don't understand. Why is something like that
Sure.
a big deal?
Well, I don't want to say anything bad about the Eastern European fighters, but I will say that at Punchdown, you had a 16-man tournament. This is the Polish Punchdown League, and I'm just a super fan of Punchdown. But if I'm in a competition with 15 other men, and we're all slapping with our right hand, but at some point my opponent decides to slap me with his left, well, that's going to affect the other side of my face.
Yeah.
So now I'm taking less damage on the side of the face that everyone else is striking to. So now I have an unfair advantage. That's my personal opinion. Now, why weight classes? I'll tell you why weight classes. When this sport became virally popular, it was at a Siberian power show. And a lot of people were confused here in the United States when they started to see the viral videos. They thought there was a huge Russian slap fighting league. And that's not what happened at all, Jason. What happened was there was the Siberian powerlifting show. And they decided that they would have a slap competition in the show. So they had 1,000 people standing there. But also they had a lot of huge behemoth powerlifting guys. And that's the thing that drew people to the sport, with these big giant men slapping each other. And, we don't really have that interest level here. Here in the United States, the people that contact me, they're typically heavyweights, light heavyweights. And I just don't feel comfortable putting a 200-pound man against a 400-pound man. It just, where I come from, you don't do that. That's when you don't want people to get concussions and CTE, and you just don't want to do that to folks. And so the issue that we have in the United States, and we have competitors from, I think, 27 states now, and really been moving around a lot to try to flesh out our rankings. But the problem that we have is that we don't have a lot of super heavyweights. It's just a very, in fact, when we first started our league, we had 3 weight classes. It was middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. And I think it was our third or fourth event, a guy hit me up. He said, "Hey, I weigh 375 pounds. Let me in." And I thought, oh God, my biggest heavyweight at the time was like 280.
Wow.
I thought, my God, that's just not fair. And let's just be honest with each other, Jason. This is a brand new sport, and I have frequent conversations with state athletic commissions about it, just so I can make sure that they know that we're working with them instead of against them. And I didn't want to have to turn in a match to them with a 250-pound guy and a 350-pound guy. So we created a super heavyweight division. It's anything over 266 pounds.
Okay.
So still pretty broad, just like MMA. And the problem was we had our former super heavyweight champion. He fought his way all the way to a 5-0 record without ever having fought a single fighter that had experience. You could add up. That's the problem with super heavyweight in the United States right now. If you added up every one of his opponents, all 5 of them. Their record was, I believe, 0-1. So it's just difficult to have a champion. Now you go into our heavyweight division and it's stacked. You know, we've got Darius the Destroyer. I don't know if you've run across any of his product yet. He's 19 years old. He won our very first tournament against grown men.
Wow.
And he's held the belt for 3 years. He's 12-0. He's won 4 tournaments. He's incredible, you know, and 12-0. Now that's a legitimate record.
Yeah.
Then you've got, of course, Wolverine, by far and large. Wolverine is
nasty.
America's champion. He's
nasty.
so popular. He is nasty. And you know what's great about this guy is this is, in my entire lifetime, this is one of the 3 nicest men I've ever met in my life. I've known him for 20 years. It's Ron, you know, that's my friend Ron. And something happened, and he just really was fantastic at slap fighting. So now we've got Ron at light heavyweight, and I believe his record is now 8-1. And these guys are fighting real competition. If you go and look at some of the matches, these are real grueling matchups. It's not just a 2 or a 3 round match, and then the judges decide who the winner is. This is a battle of the wills. These guys, some of them will tap to pain. Some of them will get knocked out. We have a 3 knockdown rule. If somebody gets knocked down 3 times, you know, that we also allow our fighters to have a corner man, which I think is very, very important.
Okay.
You want your corner man to be able to be there as a voice of reason. If you're rocked, maybe he thinks it's time to throw the towel in. And you don't.
All right.
You know, the corner man also has a big role here at Slap Fight. And, you know, for us, the weight classes have been everything. I have Wolverine. He's our light heavyweight champion. And Saturday we had a super heavyweight tournament. And we had a guy that didn't show up for the tournament. Wolverine said, "Hey, you know, can I get in that?"
Wow.
I said, "Wolverine, you can't compete at 350 pounds, man. You're a light heavyweight." He said, "Well, what do I have to put on? Another pair of boots, a weighted vest? I want to get in here." So, you know, the fighter, just like in any other combat sport, the fighter always thinks that he's going to be the winner, always. So you can't just allow the fighter to make the decision on his own. Sometimes it's important to have a corner man there. And since most of these guys don't have coaches, the corner man is everything.
What's how do you identify talent? Because you'd mentioned talent before, people just calling up like, oh, I want to be a part of stuff like that. You know, can people simply do that? You know, the Slap Fight, can they, you know, contact Slap Fight, the website, social accounts, and ask to compete? Or, you know, or is it this, after 3 years, multiple years of doing this, is there a standard you have in place? Like, a person needs to meet a certain kind of standard, be it some sort of tryout, some sort of, like, amateur tournament or something, you know, so there is a standard. You have to meet the level because we are professionals. These are the elite of the elite. You know, you can't be Joe Blow coming off the street and just going in there and slap fighting with professionals.
I think the thing about this sport that appeals to people, Jason, is that you can be a Joe Blow coming off the street.
All right.
I think people enjoy that. But again, speaking to honesty here, this isn't a sport where you have a pro ranking system yet. The problem that you have here is in the entire world, you may have 60 slap fighters. And for example, Punchdown, their last tournament, it was the World Slap Fighting Championship.
Yeah.
But Jason, if you took every one of those 16 fighters, aside from Vasily and Zalas, if you took the rest of those and combined their records, they had a combined record of 2 wins and 7 losses. And that's the entire bracket. And I think it's important to remember that this is not a combat sport that you can just immediately turn into a professional sport and start acting like we're Don King here. We're not Don King yet. What happens here is we have to painstakingly build this sport. There are checks and balances. There are rules that need to be changed. And at the end of the day, I've got a lot of guys that have experience, but we just had a few guys and we had a few ladies made debuts this last week. And how do you put a guy that's never competed before with a guy that's competed 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times?
Exactly.
Unfortunately, that's what happens in a sport when it's first coming off the lot. So you have to be very careful. Professional athletics in combat sports, when you turn someone into a professional fighter, they are no longer allowed to fight against amateur fighters.
Correct.
So I ask you, if I were to turn a professional fighter in slap fighting, how many times would he fight before he was unable to compete again just due to the fact that the sport isn't big enough?
Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with. So we do have an amateur under ranking system here at Slap Fight. We do amateur tournaments. In fact, we're doing a big amateur tournament on July 17th in Kansas City. But we also have a pro and a pro main event, co-main event in our shows now. So We do have a few guys that we've turned pro. I'm sure you know Frank the Tank. I believe he's fought 12, 13, 14 times. And where I come from, that's the amount of experience that you need to become a pro athlete.
Okay.
In MMA, I don't see many people that just decide they want to compete. They fight once or twice and they go pro. The Athletic Commission doesn't allow that. So I don't necessarily feel that's the right move for our organization either. But I will say this. I do believe that I have 5 fighters in our organization that are among the best 10 in the world.
What's the payout like for your athletes right now, especially for top stars, champions like Wolverine, like you mentioned? This could be a brutal business. Are the prizes like limited because you just mentioned it's still getting off its feet, it's still early stages, still early days because it's new, and is it a passion project for the talent just as much as you? And in the end, maybe they're not making big money yet, but it's a real true team effort in the promotion to grow this brand so it can flourish and people can get paid that money down the road.
Yeah, you actually almost answered the question for yourself there. That's the thing about this group of guys here. We do shows in Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Iowa, Texas, one in Georgia coming up later this year, I believe. And I'm also flying to Australia in September to start the Australian Slap Fight League. I'm in talks with a South African promotion about joining up with us. And then I believe that by the end of the year, we'll be on national television in Southeast Asia. So we're trying to expand at an appropriate rate. But the problem is there isn't a lot of big money for slap fighters yet. There aren't a lot of big sponsors yet. Now, Punchdown has a lot of sponsors, but you have to keep in mind that's a powerlifting company. So those are their existing sponsors.
All right. Okay.
They're very fortunate, and I like what they're doing. What we're doing couldn't be any more different, though. You know, instead of a 3-round fight, we've got a 7-round fight if it's in an elimination or a semifinal. And then in the finals, we have an unlimited round fight. Matter of fact, Saturday night, we had the longest fight in the history of the sport at 22 rounds.
Jesus.
22 rounds, Jason. No injuries.
My face hurts thinking
blood.
about it.
Oh, it was rough, man. I'll get it out soon. I'll send it to you. It was unbelievable. But to answer your question, the thing about this sport is that there isn't a lot of money. At a certain point, we had a heavyweight, super heavyweight, and a heavyweight champion. They both wanted to fight Vasily Kamatsky. And I thought, well, shoot, let me see what kind of money it's going to cost me. So I hit up Vasily Kamatsky, and it was in the 6 figures. And I realized, okay, it's not time.
Yeah.
There's no possible way that you can be financially vital with those kind of purses. And so what we've done for our fighters is we put them on a situation where we give them a percentage of the take.
Okay.
We do well on YouTube. If a fighter comes in for one of his pro fights, if it's a live show, we give him a percentage of the gate. And if it's a show that's going to be on the internet, we give them a percentage of the take there. And, they're not getting rich. I'm not going to pretend like this is a sport where you're going to get, boxing pay or even UFC pay. Yeah. But it's coming, and it's coming quickly. People are very interested in slap fighting. It's very, very, the public is very drawn to it. And all it needs is some tender love and care and just a little bit of incubation, and it's going to be a great sport.
Now, quick, two kind of questions. One, all those states you mentioned that you guys have gone to and promoted events. So, are in each of those states is the sport of slap fighting like a sanctioned thing? Is it under the overall Combat Sports Commission of those states, and you guys are sanctioned? How does that work in those? Because, like, for example, bare knuckle took a while to get sanctioned in certain states, and still, I think it's only in 3 states right now. Is slap fighting as a sport sanctioned, or those are unique situations in those states?
Well, they're unique situations, but it's very, very similar to MMA. Okay. If you know, anytime a state athletic commission is regulating MMA, then it's going to regulate both amateur and pro MMA, right? I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. If the viewers don't understand, what that means is the sport is overseen by the state athletic commission. They come to the fight. They make sure the rules and regulations and the fighters are well maintained and taken care of and safe, and they make sure that the athletes are watched over. There's no drug usage and there's no abusing of the rules, things like that. In a state where the athletic commission does not sanction the professional athletics, then what you have to do is you have to hire an independent sanctioning body. Okay. And so what we use a regulatory body. It's actually the first regulatory body in existence for slap fighting. It's called Sport Slap USA. And we actually just used them for our very first event Saturday. It was fantastic. Fantastic. I hope more of them spring up. Honestly, I hope more spring up. But I'll be honest with you. This sport's going to have a a lot of drama comes soon. A lot of state governments are going to try to keep us from practicing our sport in their states, and we're prepared for that.
Yeah.
We're ready to move around, and sometimes we do events from non-disclosed locations.
Interesting. I dig it. Very ECW. I like that. Now you have obvious competition now. As you've developed this sport in the U.S., SlapStrike has come into the picture. Is there a concern in terms of like them seemingly having some serious financial backing? The Crazy Hawaiian, who I believe was with you guys, is now going to be over there and stuff like that. Is there a fear like they're going to come in and try to scoop up your talent? Do you have to start, if you're not doing it, like give exclusive contracts so you don't lose the Wolverine and you don't lose some of these big names? And like how has the environment changed as before you were the main show in town, and now because you've helped the sport grow, now you've gotten competition from it?
I don't think there's anything wrong with competition. I wish that sometimes they would be a little more ethical, but I don't have an issue with competition. I've yet to see them do a show. Maybe once they do a show, maybe then, they'll be a little bit more of competition for us. But no, we don't have a problem with those guys. We all love the Crazy Hawaiian, but there's no one for him to fight here. You can't be the champion of the United States and fight just the toughest guy from the barbecue, So If he wants to go and try and fight somewhere else, I think that's fantastic. I love the guy, but we've had all of our athletes were contacted by that organization. They were all made offers, and I don't really have any hard feelings about that. This is athletics. You and I have been working in MMA for so long. Yeah. You know how that is.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that of all of the fighters in our organization, only one fighter decided to make a move. And I support that move. I support that move for him. Maybe he'll find some big Eastern European guys. Maybe he'll be able to go over there and compete in Punchdown. I don't know. But it would be nice to see him face some tests. The rest of these guys are staying with me. One thing you have to remember about us down here is we've been working towards a common goal for 3.5 years. And I know all of these fighters, and I know their families, and I know their kids. And we have had some very major victories for ourselves as a group in the last year. And I think most of them are going to stay put. And also, I would say, again, no disrespect to DCH, but once you become a professional athlete in the state of Wyoming, you're a professional athlete everywhere in the United States. And after you've had a fight or two, where's the talent pool? Yeah. The sport's not big enough yet, Jason. It's just not. So some of these guys are going to come in and they're going to promise the world to the athletes. It's just like every other combat sport. And the athletes are going to perform, and then there's going to be nowhere left to fight. Yeah. And so for me, that's why I'm taking baby steps. And I don't mind taking baby steps. This is a fun experience for me. And when it doesn't make money, I'm still happy to do it, And, I'm standing here now. We just did a show here. I can't tell you where we are, but we just did a show Saturday night.
Cave somewhere.
Yeah, we were in, an undisclosed location somewhere in North America, But, we had I think the barrel was sitting right here where I'm standing, and we had our first women's match. And to me, it was the first competitive women's slap fight match in existence. When you see it, you'll understand what I mean. We had two women that came to compete. They're not slapping each other in the rear end. They're not making out at the end of their fight. Right. And I hope you hear my undertone. I don't mean it to be disrespectful, but let's be honest with each other.
Yes. Yeah,
they went 7 rounds to decision, and it was an unbelievable fight. We have a new super heavyweight champion. Unbelievable. I can't tell you who he is yet because we haven't debuted the episode, but an unbelievable new super heavyweight champion. And we've got a new dominant middleweight champion crowned as of Saturday night. So we're real happy about where we're going, but we don't mind moving slowly. We have found a group of fighters from throughout the Midwest that are just really, really, they understand the process is not a fast one. They understand that we're here for the long haul. And of course they look at my track record and they realize I'm not somebody who just learned about this sport 3-4 months ago, from the internet. This is something I've been emphatic about for 5-6 years. I've been having conversations with the state athletic commissioner in my state for years about this, making sure that he wasn't going to pull my promoter's license if I did it, Mm-hmm. And this is important to us. And so we're all working together. And here and there we've had some guys that have had some offers, but the problem is in the other promotion there are no weight classes.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to, I spoke to a guy today. I don't even really mind telling you. There's a gentleman that competes in our organization, Rocky. He's kind of the bad guy. I don't know if you've ever seen Rocky, but Rocky is Rocky Moore. We all love him to death, but he kind of plays the part of the bad guy. He'll slap him and he'll blow a kiss at you and stuff. And he received an offer recently, and I said, "Hey man, I wish you the best. I hope you become the greatest ever was, But here are the things that concern me about it. Good luck." And he hit me back up today, and he showed me his opponent, and it was this massive 5-time world champion, Olympian, and so for me, I think a lot of these guys stay with me because they know that we're taking baby steps here. I'm not putting anyone in harm's way.
Right.
If somebody gets beat badly, I take care of them. As a matter of fact, I speak to every fighter that competes in our organization nearly every day. And every fighter that competed on Saturday night, I've spoken to him multiple times just to make sure there aren't any issues.
Awesome.
And that's the kind of thing you have to do when you're trying to build a sport. You have to take care of the athletes.
Yeah.
And you have to be realistic with your athletes.
Now, final question, and you might have kind of answered this on various levels throughout the conversation, stuff like that, but what are the 2 and, say, 5-year plans for the promotion? Are there hopes to land a TV deal? Is a U.S., because you talked about Asian TV deal, is a U.S. TV deal with something like Fight TV or I don't know, Flow Combat or something like that a possibility sometime soon so we can, more of the world can discover it? But no, and also, what other levels of expansion and like Slap Strike and Punchdown have been working together, is co-promotion with them at all possible, or not really, because you are serious about weight classes and you're not going to put your fighters in jeopardy with super heavyweights?
I'm serious about weight classes, but I also believe strongly that I have found the American team.
Okay.
I have 10 fighters that I believe could contend with 10 fighters as long as they come within 35 pounds of each other. And I would have no problem competing with Punchdown. I also don't have any problem just giving Punchdown a pat on the butt and telling them that they're putting out a great product. But, I'm not a person that really wants to go to war and battle with other promoters. I think there's enough for everyone, but I think that it would be much better for our sport if everyone could work together.
Yeah.
It's just the way that it's always been in combat sports. It's an industry that's built on conflict, so it's probably always going to be like that.
Yeah.
But as far as the growth patterns for the sport, I mean, obviously, what I would like to do is pay-per-view broadcast. That's for me. That would be where I would stand to make the most profit as a company. But it isn't time. It's not time for that yet. I like to give it away for free, Jason. I think right now, while we're building the sport, it's time to give it away for free. Why would you try to charge somebody $15, $20 to watch a pay-per-view when they don't even love the sport yet? They haven't been educated on how it works or what the strategies are. So, right now, while we're building the sport, I do believe that it's better to make the investment of giving it away. And when it's time to over commercialize it, trust me, I have a showbiz background. Okay. I'm absolutely ready to commercialize it and pimp it out, but right now it's not the time. Again, Punchdown's great. I see Punchdown for what it is. I was a little bit perturbed by the way they fast tracked Vasily into the final and gave Zalish some extra love to help him get the win. But Zalish is a friend of mine. I talk to him all the time, and he is the best in the world right now. Vasily is the most famous in the world, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Vasily has lost 100 pounds, Jason. And in this sport, that matters. Yeah. So, Zalish is great. I think he's great. I hope he continues to win. Those people love him over there, and he's a great gentleman. But, so is Dumpling. He's great. I talk to him once in a while, and it's difficult because we have to use Google Translator. What you find about these guys is that they're just big, humble dudes, man. And it's really a great sport from the perspective of you get the instant gratification that a lot of the younger people want. You get the occasional carnage that the MMA fans want. But then again, what you get with this sport is a weird brotherhood that you don't get in other sports. It's a real strange brotherhood. But we're going to keep doing the shows. We're going to keep putting them out there. And our TV deal in Southeast Asia, we aren't allowed to talk about it too much yet. I think I shared some stuff with you earlier, but I can't really be too descriptive on an interview just yet. But all right. Our deal in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, China, Thailand, there are hundreds of millions of people over there. Yeah. And we hope to make some new fans. The South African fans, the South African fans are just starting to learn about the sport. And then, of course, I'm working together with one of the greatest promoters in Australia, and we're going to create Slap Fight Australia. Why are we doing that? We're doing that so that we can have real world title fights with real world rankings. And I hope that Punchdown is a part of that. And if SlapStrike does some shows, I hope that SlapStrike's a part of that. But it's going to be very difficult for SlapStrike because there isn't they don't have a stable yet. They're right now trying to put together a stable, but it's O guys, guys that haven't competed before. So, that's an amateur event. So, we all have to be honest with ourselves about the state of the sport. And, 5 years from now, we'll see who was willing to grind it out, who was just trying to make a quick buck.
If you enjoyed this edition of Jason Burgos' Back Talk, you can follow and subscribe on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Player FM, and many more podcast formats.